All righty. I guess we are live. I am Brother Goodwin, Evangelist Dan Goodwin, host of Prophecy in the Spotlight. We're on several networks across the country several times a week now. I guess it all begins on Friday night on CTN, nationwide on Dish and DirecTV satellite. Saturday, we're on VTN on several different ways all through Arkansas. Monday, we're on a new network in the evening called Greater Love TV. And then on Wednesday, we are on Faith TV. You'll find us on Direct TV on channel 379, I believe it is. And we're also on bbsradio.com. Look that up, bbsradio.com. Over 50,000 hits as I speak. 50,000. Well, let me see. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Where is it? See if I can find it. That's not, here it is right here. Okay, 55,000. Let me refresh it because this ends tonight because a new month is starting. Let me show you how many hits we've had. It's 54,604, but I'm refreshing it to see if that's going to change. Or maybe it already refreshed. No, here it goes. 54,690 people have watched this month our BBS radio. We're on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. It's TV, but it's internet, and I believe there's an app, and or you just watch it online. We are getting a lot of attention over there. That's pretty exciting. And we're also on several radio stations, but all right. I just wanted to come tonight. This is of course Thursday night, and a lot going on election wise. Won't you be glad when this is over? Won't you be glad? But I want to say this tonight to my viewers. John chapter 14 verse 1 says this: "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions." And listen, this is all going to be over one day, regardless of who wins. It's not going to affect our home in heaven. It's not going to affect Christ coming back to take back the kingdom and straighten this mess out. Um, quit worrying about it. Okay, quit worrying about it. Pray. Ask God to do a miracle. Ask God to heal our nation. Claim 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people are called by my name, shall humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will heal their land and forgive their sin. Don't just claim that. Do what it says. All right. And get some people saved, get some people out to the vote. Hey, get some people to the voting booth. Now, let's do what we can do. Let's pray that God does what he can do. And let's you and I do what we can do, okay? I like this statement I learned a long time ago. Pray like it all depends upon God, and work like it all depends upon you. Good statement, isn't it? Okay? It's important. Now I want to say this about the election. I've been watching this thing a long time. I got to be honest. I just scared some of these, didn't I? I'm going to be honest tonight. Listen now. Listen. As of the last couple of days, especially today, I feel pretty good about this thing. I know there's no guarantees. I know they're going to cheat. I know there's going to be fraud. There's already fraud. I've got a good feeling about this thing. I could be wrong. It could be that this thing turns into a mess. It could be we lose. But I don't think so at this moment. So the courts have been ruling in our favor already, and some of these. The Republicans have got this thing. They got their act together this time. We got rid of Roma Daniels or whatever her name was that headed up the RNC. We've got real people in there now. MAGA people running the RNC. They've got a slew of lawyers. They're already bringing lawsuits. They're already bringing the heat and trying to keep up with the Dems, right? And so it's amazing. We've already won some cases. Supreme Court said Virginia can throw out the non-citizen voters. They ruled properly there. Some other things. There are other lawsuits going on. There's other things happening. We won a thing in Pennsylvania where they were stopping people from voting early before it was time to quit. They brought a lawsuit right away, and they gave them 3 more days. I think tomorrow's it. Early voting in Bucks County, I believe it is. You probably heard that story. Do you see what's happening here? We're getting some big wins here. And if you're going to win, if you're going to fight fraud, you've got to fight it before the vote comes in and before they announce a winner. Very hard, as we learned in 2020 after the fact. Okay, so that's happening. It's happening. The polls that I'm seeing are showing that Trump is ahead almost everywhere. Maybe only a few points, but usually that means he's ahead more than that. Nevada, we're winning Nevada. He's there right now. I don't know. He's probably done speaking now, but he was just there. It looks like we're going to win Nevada. I think the pre vote tally in Arizona. Did I hear that we were 180,000 ballots up from the Democrats? That's unheard of. Never happened before. The Democrats are the early voters, and especially during the COVID thing. The Republicans, they just got going on this, and this looks like it could be a landslide. So pray like it all depends upon God. Work like it all depends upon us. But quit fretting over this. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, the Bible says. Let not your heart be troubled, Jesus said. We serve a big God. Regardless which way this goes, God is still on the throne. We've got nothing to worry about here. If we lose, we lose. If we win, we got to roll up our sleeves again. We got to get to work. We got to start getting people born again. We got to get the word of God out there. And maybe the Lord's going to give us some more time. Maybe the rapture's going to happen tomorrow, like I've told you. Very possibly. I'm not a date setter. Never have set a date. I have set some dates that I think fit the 25-20 scenario. I do that every year, but I'm not setting a date. I don't know what year is coming, and you can't trust any of the calendars. But tomorrow, or 6 p.m. in the evening in Israel, which will be 10 a.m., 10 or 11 a.m., depending on where you are in the time zones, tomorrow morning would be the time of the rapture if he was coming on the new moon in November. Okay. Is he? I don't know. It'd be okay with me if he comes. If he don't come, we got more to do. Okay. So remember, it's Jerusalem time, 6 p.m. Jerusalem time will be when the rapture is, whatever day. Now, 6 p.m. in Jerusalem is let's see, it's 6 p.m. there. See, they're ahead of us, so it'd be 10 a.m. here, 10 to 11 a.m. East Coast Central Time, and all that. Okay, I'm not going to go into the whole scenario about my November 1st thing. You can go back. You probably, most of you maybe already saw that. Okay. Um, yes, Miss Carolyn, I saw Brother Bill. He and I spent 3 hours in the little radio room there. I'm trying to. I don't think you've ever been there, Carolyn. But anyway, where they have the radio and they do the interviews in there. He and I were in there for 3 hours, and he recorded, I think, about 3 hours. I don't know when he's going to air some of that, but we had a good time. Okay. So I feel really encouraged about this thing. I think Trump could win big. And I think that the Democrats have lost it here. And the only way they can pull this off is you know what. And we've got people this time. We've got lawyers ready. We've got poll watchers. We've got everyone is on their guard. It's going to be harder to pull it off this time. So we'll see what happens. But don't fret about it. What happens, happens. Now, let me tell you about my Daniel study guide. Some of you have been asking. This is the cover. Let me take it out of there because this thing's got an awful glare on it. This is the cover of the Daniel study. Yeah, that's better. The Daniel study guide. Some of you have pre-ordered it already. This thing is going to be awesome. A couple of days ago, this thing took on a whole new life. I can't explain that to you. If you've never written a book, it'll be hard for me to explain what I mean by that. But whenever I write a book, you get going, you got things in your head, you got things written down, and you start putting it together. There comes a time, usually during the process of that book, when suddenly it clicks and it starts to come together, and you get the format, and you get excited about it, and it takes a whole new direction. That happened the other night with the Daniel Study Guide. As of right now, it's over 100 pages. I thought it was going to be less than 100 pages. I was wrong. It's going to be more than 100. How much more? I don't know. It's going to be regular book form, by the way. It's not going to be the 8 by 11 like my Revelation. It's going to be a normal size book form. For instance, it's going to be this size right here, the 7 Clocks book. It's going to be that size, only it's going to be spiral bound. It'll have the spiral on it, so it'll open up flat on your table like a loose leaf. Spiral bound like the Revelation Study Guide, right? It's not going to be bound like this. This is the cover. Over 100 pages. Here's how I've set this thing up. And let me bring it up here. Here's how I've set it up. I've got my introduction. My introduction is where I give you all just the basic stuff. For instance, who's the author? Well, guess what? It's Daniel the prophet. That's pretty rough, right? Pretty tough. What are the dates of this book? Well, 605 BC. In other words, 600 years before Jesus comes on the scene. To, I don't know, 535. Basically covers about the 70 years of the captivity, 7-year captivity. And I have a big paragraph about that. What is this 70-year captivity? So I have a paragraph in explaining the 70 captivity because that's important. Because the book of Daniel takes place during the chapter 1 starts out with the captivity. The whole book of Ezekiel, the whole book of Jeremiah, those great big prophecy books, prophetic books, Jeremiah and Ezekiel, they all deal with pre and captivity time, pre-captivity and the captivity time. Jeremiah and Ezekiel were alive then. They weren't together, but they lived the same time, and they both preached to Judah. Okay, now the 10 tribes are already gone. They're up in Assyria. They've been already taken out. Judah, which is the 2 tribes, and they have Jerusalem. They're still there. They're going to be taken out with Babylon in 605, 100 and some years past. Not 100 and some years. Anyway, 75 years later or something like that. Okay, so I have the key verse here. I won't bother giving you that, but I have the key verse of the entire book of Daniel. In fact, that key verse is used, I think, about 4 times, three or 4 times in the book of Daniel. That same verse is quoted, and that's my key verse for the book. And I won't give all this away, but I'm going to give what I think is the outline of the book. I'll have that in there. And then I put something else that you don't usually see in a study guide. I've got the main characters of the book of Daniel. Of course, Daniel the prophet, the main character, but there's also the 3 Hebrew boys, as we call them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And I'll explain to you why I believe Babylon changed their names, also changed Daniel's name. His name's going to be changed to Belteshazzar. And I give 3 reasons why I believe his name is changed. You got the king Nebuchadnezzar. You got Belteshazzar, not to be confused with um, you got Belshazzar, not to be confused with Belteshazzar. Belshazzar is Nebuchadnezzar's grandson. He's the one that sees the writing on the wall. And you got the Persian Empire, the king of Persia. You got the angel, Michael the prince. You got Satan, prince of Persia. Though these are some of the main characters of the book of Daniel. Um, it's a book of prophecy. And since it's a book of prophecy and a lot of prophetic things in it, I give in here how to understand the Bible, how to interpret the Scripture. And I share this in several of my books, but it's very important and it needs to be said. The three ways to read your Bible, and three things to look for. Number one, literal. Look for the literal interpretation always. Secondly, look for figurative lessons when you read the Bible. And number three, and very important, especially in the book of Daniel, look for the prophetic lesson. And it's all through the book of Daniel. And so I give that's several pages here. And some of you have read that in my other books. I give some illustrations. Mary, Martha are in here, the seven churches. Um, let's see, I got some other things as well. But okay. And then I get to Daniel chapter 1. And this is how it's set up throughout the rest of the book. It's set up the same way. I have a big heading, and there'll be a picture underneath the heading, a black and white picture, most likely, that will fit the chapter. And we don't have them all yet. We're working on that. For instance, the fiery furnace. We're going to try to get a picture of the fiery furnace, preferably an old one, black and white. But chapter 1 is an introduction. Is basically the beginning of the story here. And I call Daniel 1, chapter 1, my theme for that is Daniel's resolve. I get that from Daniel 1:8, one of the great verses of the Bible. Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat or the king's wine. Um, and I'll give you the definition of that in the book. And what that means. Daniel's resolve. Daniel purposed in his heart. He had resolve that he was going to be pure. He was going to live right. He was going to be holy. He was going to walk with his God. And he proves that throughout the chapters of the book, that he does that, even at the cost of being put to death or sent to the lion's den, which comes up later here. So I give a little paragraph here about Daniel, how old he was when he's in chapter 1, because it starts right out in chapter 1 with Nebuchadnezzar has just showed up with his armies, and they're wiping out the soldiers. They took Jerusalem. They're going to come back a couple years later and finish the job, but that first time they come, they just about wipe them out. They take Daniel, the three Hebrew boys, they take them back to Babylon. And I explain what that's about, why the king does that, why Nebuchadnezzar takes some captives, and who he takes and why. Very important, very interesting. And then you get to the part in the chapter. Every chapter will have this now. I'll have a little summary of my theme of the chapter, and then I go into what I call my commentary. Now, my commentary is just what you think it is, just like grabbing a book off your shelf, a commentary. And you're trying to decipher, well, what does that verse mean in Daniel chapter 5, verse 4? So you go to a commentary sometimes. And usually when you can't figure something out, you go to a commentary, you find out they didn't know either. That's just the way it is. But commentaries will they'll pick verses and they'll write a little paragraph under it. Then they'll go to another verse and they'll write something about that. Sometimes they'll skip a verse and there's nothing there. There's a lot of different commentaries online you can look at. I would use that as a last resort. I would try to study myself first, but there's nothing wrong with seeing however other men saw it. Doesn't mean they're right. But so my commentary, what I've done is I've pasted the entire book of Daniel into this book from the Bible. What I did is each chapter is going to have, for instance, there's 21 verses, I think. Let me see if I'm right. Yeah, there's 21 verses in the first chapter of Daniel. I pasted them all in. There's a space between each verse. They're all it's the whole thing is pasted there. Then what I do is I start in verse 1 and I begin to read it, and sometimes I'll put a couple verses together. In this case, Daniel chapter 1, verse 1 and verse 2 kind of go together. So let me read it to you. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. And he took it over. By the way, you'll find out in Jeremiah, I just looked this up. Jeremiah chapter, didn't I write it down? I think it's chapter 25. But anyway, pretty sure it's chapter 25. But anyway, it doesn't matter. In Jeremiah, it tells us that in the fourth year of Jehoiakim, in other words, Jehoiakim is the final king that's going to rule before the captivity begins. In fact, he's the king when Nebuchadnezzar shows up. He's the king of Judah, right? The two tribes, and they have Jerusalem, and he's the king that's there when Babylon brings their armies and overtakes them, and he's taken away. He's not killed. He's taken away with some of the others. He's in his fourth year of his reign. The Bible tells us that. The Bible also tells us, and I just saw this tonight. The Bible says that Nebuchadnezzar is in his first year of his reign. Isn't that interesting? So you got a brand new king coming up against a 4-year king, and of course Nebuchadnezzar just wipes him out. I mean, he fierce, the Babylonians. Okay, and so verse 2, and the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand. Now, did you catch something in that phrase I just read? And the Lord gave. I underlined that. The Lord gave. What does the Bible say there? It was God's will. God gave the victory to Babylon, gave the king of Judah into the hand of the king of Babylon. That's what Jeremiah was preaching. That's what Ezekiel was preaching in the pre-captivity years, warning Jerusalem, warning Judah that God was bringing judgment. There's nothing you can do about it. God is going to take us to Babylon in judgment. And he was telling them to give into it. Of course, they didn't. And God did this. This was the 70-year captivity, a very important time in biblical history that you need to understand. There's a lot that revolves around that 70-year period. Big books of the Bible revolve around it. You got Jeremiah and Ezekiel. They're preaching before the captivity. They're preaching about it. Then you got the captivity book, Daniel. Then you got the post-captivity books, Nehemiah, Esther, Ezra. You see what I'm saying? All this is important. It all revolves around that one little thing called the 7-year captivity. Very important, okay? And so the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. This is Babylon. So those two verses, what do we learn in them first two verses? Well, I wrote this in verse 1 and 2. Now I didn't mention the first part yet. In verse 2 there, I haven't mentioned that yet, but I'm getting ready to write that. Add that here. But the Lord did this. This was God's will. Israel, Judah was going to be judged here. And this was going to happen. There was no stopping. In fact, God brought Babylon to their land to bring judgment upon them. Okay, so in verse 1 and 2, we're given information that gives us the timeline for the book of Daniel. Did you catch that in verse 1? In the third year of the reign of who? Jehoiakim. Okay, Jehoiakim, he's going to reign third year, fourth year, something like that. Jeremiah, I think, said fourth year. But in the third year of his reign, king of Judah came to Nebuchadnezzar. But realize Nebuchadnezzar came again a second time, just a couple years later, and finished the job. So, it's just an average thing here. But when you learn who the king was and what year of his kingship, this is how we date stuff. You can go to history and you can find when was Jehoiakim. You can go to the book of 2 Kings chapter 23 and on through the rest of the book. And you can read the stories of Jehoiakim. You can see who was alive then. You can date it that way, right? So that's why that's important that God said it this way. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, probably near the end of his third reign, um, comes Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim into his hand. And okay, so we see in verse 1 and 2, we're given information that gives the timeline for the book of Daniel. Jehoiakim is the final king of Israel that is in power when Babylon attacks and overcomes them. He's taken captive and brought to Babylon. You can read the account of it in 2 Kings, beginning in chapter 23, and also 2 Chronicles, beginning in chapter 36. 2 Chronicles, by the way, is a repeat of history. First and Second Kings is the history of the kings. First and Second Chronicles is putting in other details, and it's the same stories, just some things left out, some things added, on and on. And so you can read about it there. You can also go to the book of Jeremiah. In fact, Jehoiakim is mentioned all through Jeremiah. I put his name in my Bible searcher here, and dozens of times through the book of Jeremiah, King Jehoiakim is mentioned. He's the king during that time, and so he's taken captive, brought to Babylon. So then I come to verse 3 and then verse 4, and I put those two together, and I said something about verse 3 and 4. And so that's the way it is. That's the way the whole book's going to be set up. I'll have a theme. I'll have a few paragraphs, maybe even a few pages. Who knows of something about my theme for the chapter. Then I put the text itself in there, the entire chapter, whatever chapter we're in. I put it in there with a space between each verse, and then I read through and I make comments. It's my commentary. What I think of the verses as I read them. That's not going to be exhaustive. I'm not going to spend 10 pages on a verse, okay? Although you never know, I may include a chapter out of one of my books that goes with one of them verses. And okay, so you see how it's set up. Then at the end of my commentary, I have lessons. That's the end of each of the chapters. Lessons and application. What does this mean? What have we learned from this chapter? Okay, so I gave you just a little highlight of chapter 1 there. Daniel chapter 2, I actually found a picture, and I have a picture there of the golden statue and the world empires that the dream's going to be about. And the theme for chapter 2 is the times of the Gentiles from man's perspective. And that's gold and silver, precious metals. And okay, when we get to chapter 7, we're going to look at those same kingdoms from God's perspective, the times of the Gentiles. Okay, and I have a whole 2 or 3 pages here about what it means, what the time of the Gentiles, what do we mean by that. Then my commentary. I have the whole chapter, chapter 2. How many verses in chapter 2? There's more verses than there was in our last. In fact, there's twice as many. There's 49 verses, so 2.5 times as big of a chapter. Okay, so I have all 49 verses here, and I give my commentary of these verses. Sometimes it's one verse, and then I'll say something. There may be 4 or 5 verses, and then I have a paragraph. Okay, you see how I'm doing that? And so I am getting very close. I've got some more stuff to add. There's more stuff I've written down that I want to get in there. But it's I really was hoping and am hoping that I could be ready for proofreaders by the end of this weekend or something. And that's possible. The problem is I've got to go to the studio. We got to leave Saturday morning. I've got a guest coming Saturday afternoon. Saturday evening, I'll have all evening at the studio. We're going to stay right there. I'll have all evening to work on the book. And Sunday we'll be at church there with Doc and our guest that I'm bringing in, Andy Tully, evangelist Andy Tully. Maybe some of you know him. He's going to be our guest in the studio, and he's preaching at Doc's church on Sunday. And Doc and I will probably do a show, us two, on Sunday afternoon, record something, and then we're going to go to my daughter's, and then we'll come back through either Monday or Tuesday and do another show on the way back through. By then, I think I'm hoping I'll have a lot of the rough edges done here. The book is very close. Let me say that the book of Daniel, the study guide, is getting very close to being ready to send to the printer. Okay, so have you ordered yours yet? It would help us if some of you would go ahead and pre-order. I haven't been pushing this real heavy, but I need to. Get that thing ordered. It'll help me. So when these things are printed and they're shipped to me, I want to have a bunch of them ready in envelopes. Get them in envelopes and get them shipped right away. Okay. On the website, there's two ways to pre-order. You can buy one for, what did I do with that anyway? Oh, here it is. You can buy one for $18.95, free shipping, or you can buy two for, I think it's $30. Free shipping. And in other words, get one for your pastor. Please get one for your pastor. The book of Daniel is very misunderstood in some places. Daniel 9 is so important. And Daniel 9 is all written, by the way. And so get it ordered, get it pre-ordered. It will not be long, maybe a couple weeks at the most. It'll be sitting here, print inboxes ready for me to put in envelopes and ship to you. So we're that close. So get on there and order it. And I just and by the way, we finished the book of Revelation, all 22 chapters in our TV shows. They're all on YouTube. We are going to get a flash drive. In fact, we'll have it Saturday. We have a flash drive that we're going to see if we can get them all on. We think we can. We want to get all 25 or 26, however many there are, shows that we did on the book of Revelation. We want to put them on a flash drive, and we're going to sell that to folks. We're going to let people purchase that, so they'll have the whole book of Revelation, all of our shows that we did on each chapter, in order on the flash drive. They can watch any one they want, or they can pick one, or they can watch them in order, and they'll be there. And they won't have to go to YouTube and try to find them. They can just plug it in a computer. So maybe you'd like to have one of those. So we don't know what the cost is going to be yet. It depends what we're going to pay for the flash drive, and of course, then there's shipping and all that. But I think a lot of folks are going to want that. And so we are getting ready to start the book of Daniel. We're going to use my study guide. We're going to teach through the book of Daniel, just like we did the Revelation for the last several months. Been quite a few months. Now every now and then we slip something in, because there's stuff going on in the world. But okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the book of Daniel. We're going to go through it and give a summary of the book right out of my study guide here. So going to be good. The Daniel study guide will be like no other study guide you've ever read. It's going to have my flavor in it, how I write, how I think, how I lay things out. Simple. Okay, so I think you're going to enjoy this thing. And going to be 100 plus pages. I don't know yet. It won't be 200, I promise you that. A left behind flash drive for people left here after the rapture. Well, I don't know, brother. There are some books that guys have done. Calvin is asking have I ever thought of producing something to be left behind for the rapture for people to find. If you have followed me long enough and have read my books and heard me talk about Revelation and who gets saved and when, in my Revelation study guide, there's a whole page, 8 by 11, in the back of it, titled "Who Gets Saved and When." I don't know if I got one Well, I got one over there, but I am not going to try to get it. A whole page. Who gets saved and when during the tribulation? And I have believed this for a long time. Nobody has ever refuted this. I do not believe anybody gets saved the first half of the tribulation, 1260 days. I believe after the 1260th day, I believe the first people saved are the 144,000 Jewish men. And I can show you right where they get saved. I can show you the verse. I can tell you what's going on. I can tell you why they get saved. I can show you what happens in Matthew 24 the moment that they get born again, start praising Jesus. They're called the first fruits unto God. Now, any farmer will tell you what that means. First fruits. That's the first crop of the garden. I believe God is telling us they're the first crop of the tribulation. And but anyway, so all that to say this, I'm not sure there'd be any value in leaving a book or a tape or there is a guy, I think it's the Lalong brothers. Remember Peter Lalong and his brother, I forget his brother, Peter and Paul, I think. Lalong, they were from Canada and they used to be on the radio. I remember hearing some of their stuff years ago. I'm pretty sure one of them is dead. I don't, maybe both. I don't know, but I know at least one of them is gone, and I don't know what they're either one of them are doing today. But um, I believe that they had a book that was designed to be left. Now I may be mixing them up with somebody else. I don't know, but I seem to remember somebody talking about a book to be left behind for your loved ones after the rapture. And fine if you want to, if you think that that's worthwhile, that's fine. I wouldn't be mad at you. You mean well, but I'm telling you, there's no conviction. Nobody. It isn't like the Left Behind movies where the guy wakes up and his wife's gone, or vice versa, and he's looking around and he realizes what happened. He gets on his knees and gets saved. That don't happen. You won't find that in the Word of God. You'll find just the opposite. Okay, they're going to be hiding in the caves from the wrath of the Lamb. Okay, um, so would there be any value of leaving something like that behind? I don't know. I'm not saying if it's going to have value, it won't have value until the midpoint. If somebody should find that in the middle of tribulation, that's I get that would have value. So it's not a bad idea. But anyway, all right, get that study guide ordered, please. I'd like to see 20 of you tonight. Go on there and get that thing and hit the pre-order button and get that paid for, get it done, and so that we can have a slew of these to get out soon as they're printed. Okay, I promise you, it's going to be helpful to you. It'll be helpful to your pastor if you'll get him one. It'll help him put this thing together. And if you don't have the puzzle book yet, what are you waiting on? It's the most important thing that I've ever written, the prophecy puzzle, putting the pieces together. I'm taking meetings now. I've already scheduled several. Um, November, December, January. I've already got some things on the calendar um, where I'll be teaching, putting the pieces together conferences concerning the prophecy puzzle. I have a PowerPoint that goes with it. In fact, I did some of this at Shepherdsville at the conference I was just at. I just did one session, and I gave them a pretty good taste of it. I did the four corners of the puzzle, and the most important one, by the way. And so, well, Esther, you vote tomorrow, and remember our motto: vote early and vote often. Oh, wait a minute, that's the Democrats' motto. And I have not voted. To vote early, we have to drive a half an hour to the courthouse, and I've never voted early, and I'll be back in time to vote. So I didn't see the need. I figured somebody's got to vote on election day too, right? Can't just everybody can't vote early. Somebody's got to be there on election day. And me, my wife, and my daughter are going to be there'll be at least 3 people there to vote on Tuesday. Okay, and yes, by all means, for goodness sakes, don't just pray, vote. Pray like it all depends on God, and work like it all depends on you. That means you get to that voting place, and if you got to wait an hour or two, you wait an hour or two. You vote, and you make your voice heard, okay? And get some family members, get some neighbors, offer to drive them down there to vote, okay? That's what I'm talking about. Work like it's up to us, okay? All right. Well, we'll get off here. And interesting, anything could happen. Anything could happen. I mean, nuclear explosion, rockets. I mean, anything could happen in the next few days. Let me tell you another thing that's given me some pretty good hope here. 2, maybe 3 times now, they've tried to kill Donald Trump. I mean, one of them, the bullet nicked his ear. And it seems like God has divinely stepped in here. That kind of tells me, hey, God has a purpose. God still has something for that man to do, and that gives me some pretty good hope. I don't know about you. So let not your heart be troubled. Don't fret over this. Pray, do everything you can do, and have hope. Okay. And all right. God bless you, Esther. Hope you are feeling better. And we're going to get off here, and we will talk to you next time. Hey, until next time, keep your eyes on them skies.